Yeah, so I think if you do Buzzsprout now, I think it breaks it down for you because I have Buzzsprout and they tell you how many Spotify listens I got, how many Stitcher, whatever. I just signed it up for a bunch of distributors and they tell me the numbers. I think they started breaking it down now, so
Mhm.
it makes it a little bit easier for us, you know.
Yeah, we have Buzzsprout right now.
Okay, okay,
That's what we
yeah.
use.
If you
But
go to
not but none of
stats, they
them
tell you.
none of them give you true numbers though. Meaning they give you like you get almost like an estimate, but you don't get the absolute numbers of what your total listenership is across all the different platforms because there's so many different platforms out there. Like there's people that can be listening to our episodes that Buzzsprout won't exactly track those like
So like SoundCloud, it doesn't
miscellaneous
it doesn't track
Yeah.
SoundCloud, you know.
yeah.
Buzzsprout doesn't track SoundCloud, and SoundCloud for us, like a lot of our listeners came from SoundCloud, you know. So when we went to Buzzsprout, we dispersed all the different platforms. We were like, yo, where did our audience go? They went Stitcher, they went to Google Play, they went to whole different places, which is cool for them, but it gets harder for us. So
That makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, my main is like YouTube. So other than that, if the numbers are wrong, I hope they're rounding down because hey, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
but
see,
yeah.
doing it on YouTube is nice though because again, if your primary source is to do it on YouTube, then it sets you up well because then you already know YouTube is giving you true numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then if
Mhm.
everybody's like, oh, I gotta listen to it on YouTube, then everyone goes to YouTube versus they're going to all these other different places to get, your stuff. So it's something that as podcasting grows, they'll develop it. But right now, I don't think it's there yet. I don't think it's where they want it to be or where we want it to be.
No, I feel that. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
almost
SoundCloud, that's the hustle.
almost
I never
set
even
it up.
I never put mine on SoundCloud. It's like the first time. I don't know
Mhm.
podcasters put their stuff on SoundCloud, honestly, but
Yeah, and SoundCloud can act like a hosting site, just like Buzzsprout. You know, so you can go to SoundCloud and get a lot of those numbers. That's what we're actually doing. We're getting all of our numbers from SoundCloud. But the problem is from SoundCloud. I think we beat like the storage capacity, and we couldn't do like those the audio bits. You know what I'm talking about that you can do on Buzzsprout, where you can
yeah,
do
yeah.
30 seconds, 60 seconds. So just a lot of stuff that and Buzzsprout got us on Pandora that SoundCloud couldn't do. So we actually pay for both, you know?
Oh, really? That you have to pay for SoundCloud? How much is it?
We do. We do.
How much?
It's the creators. It's the creator account.
Yeah, that's
SoundCloud creator. I
much
think it's
better.
like I don't know how much it is. I think like maybe like between 180 to 220 a year.
Oh man. Yeah,
Yeah.
Buzzsprout's like 12 a month, so 144. Jeez, you guys, hey, that's big money right there.
And Mo,
Investing, you know.
and Mo, your
Got
Wi-Fi is some your booty, bro.
Mine, my
No,
mine.
Wi-Fi,
Mo's. You like?
not his is good. I think yours is bad.
Mine is good. I
Oh, you
got
think mine's
commercial,
bad?
bro.
Yeah, because you're the only one cutting off.
Yeah, I
Well,
got
I'm the one
commercial,
cutting
bro.
in and out.
Yeah,
Sorry, fellas. Then this is
it's
all I
all
can
good.
do.
It's all good. All right. So let's get that situated then. Well, hey, it's time to start this thing then. Salam alaikum, everybody. We got two special guests in the building. We got Jibreel, Salam, and Mohammad Hassan. They're the hosts of the Young and Muslim podcast. Huge platform, mashallah. They discuss a variety of topics, including Islam, the youth, the culture, and they got pretty cool guests too. So, hey, it's great to have you guys on. How have you guys been, man?
Yeah, appreciate y'all. Assalamu alaikum,
Good,
man.
man. Like I'm so I'm happy to be here, man.
For sure. Where are you guys right now?
Virginia. Both of us reside in Virginia, but thankfully I'm home. It's been a long, cold, rainy day here, but yeah, it's been good, man.
Hey, tell us what happened though. Tell us what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah. On the way to doing the interview, I was a little bit late, but my car caught a unexpected flat. Then I had to go and get my spare patched, and then I changed my tire all up in the rain. So but we here, we dry.
Hey, I appreciate that big time. So do my viewers and listeners. But let me tell you guys something. These dudes right here, they're always grinding. You know, I've been following them for a while, inspiration of mine, honestly, inspiration for probably a lot of young Muslim podcasters. So, we appreciate them for that. They're really one of the first to grind. Number one Muslim podcast in the world. Number two, I'm number one Muslim. Hey, I'm the number one Muslim podcast.
I respect it. I respect it, but you're wrong.
Okay, listen, I started. How long you guys start? How long ago do you guys start?
We're going on to our third year in May. It'll be year 3.
Okay, I got catching up to do that. I'll see you guys after 3 years now.
Yeah, come see us once you get your numbers up. We'll be here.
All right, for sure. Okay, challenge accepted. But I mean, yeah, you guys have been grinding, traveling the country and everything, right? I see that on your Instagram. I saw you guys with Dave East. I was like, shoot, that's some big business right there. Like, were you guys working on something or what?
No. So we were operating with one of our mentors, one of our big brothers, Tone Trump. And we're part of this collective of young Muslims out here, all of us grinding. We're all, in our respective areas of expertise. We call it the Muslim Don family. So it's a collective, a group of strong Muslims, brothers, sisters, people that are excellent in their profession. So lawyers, you got Hafiz al-Quran, you got scholars, you got rappers, you got, people from all different areas of the culture coming together, and we all work together. We got authors in there. So it's like, no matter what it is you do, if you're a part of this family, we come together for things like that. In that particular event that we were at, Dave East pulled up. So we were there with, some real OGs from Philly and from New York, and everyone kind of pulled up, and we had some people that were also invited to the event, and it was a good time.
How did you guys meet Tone Trump?
It was through Instagram. Yeah, through Instagram, we just shot him a DM, and he even talks about in the episode that we did with him, the Muslim Don, episode 52. He was just like, I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks before Ramadan. He usually has a slower time then. He's not releasing music, any projects. He's just chilling, spending time with his family. So he kind of plugs out. So we were able to catch him at the right time, and we were literally the last interview he did right before he plugged out for Ramadan. So we just shot him a DM. He's like, yo, I got your brothers. Just come out to Philly on this day. And we drove out there and we made it happen. So
nice. That's a story right there. And he's your mentor. So like, how does he guys help you out?
I mean, in a multitude of ways, man. Having a relationship like that is cool because he comes from a place where, he's been in the rap game for a while. He comes from a lifestyle that's very dissimilar, but also very similar to how we came up in a lot of ways, right? So being able to talk with him about, certain struggles that we have out here just as men, certain struggles we have as Black men, certain struggles we have as creators. We don't see what we do as very different, as much different from rap as podcasting. So we talked to him about, how we should move in the industry, how we should move with working with certain companies, things like that. And he's really just like a big brother to us and to what we're trying to do. And he supports it fully. So when you have that sort of backing, you try and appreciate it. I would say take advantage, but take advantage, I don't think it shows a complete story of like that relationship, but definitely appreciate it and utilize it and respect it.
When did he start this whole movement? Because man, he's making moves. I see that all over my Instagram. When did he start this?
Are you talking about just the whole, like the Muslim Don family, or just?
Yeah.
It was sometime last year.
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Not
like, I mean 2019.
Yeah.
That's gaining traction. That's what I'm saying. Like, I see it all over my Instagram. I see him talking to the youth. I see like you guys talking to him and everything. So
yeah, and social media can be deceiving, right? Because you think that when you see it, that's when it started, but this is stuff that he's been doing behind closed doors for a minute. And now, he decided to put a name to it and a label to it. And he's like, okay, cool, MDF. But he was operating like that with us and, many others before it became an Instagram page. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to see it and it be publicized is one thing, but to see the action is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's big respect to him. I see Is he? Did he convert to Islam by any chance?
No.
No, no.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because I talked to I had a podcast with former rapper Loon. He was signed to Bad Boy Records back in the day, and he became Muslim, you know, went through the prison system, the corrupt prison system. He had the rough side of it, but he got out. He's doing big things too, making moves. I was thinking that, man, like these guys, they've seen that part of the game. They understand what they can do with their platform, and they're really acting on it. So it's
Mm.
big respect to them for sure. But when you guys do travel the country and everything, is it to make connections, or is it just to like visit people like Tone Trump and do some work with him? Like, what is that? What's the reason for you guys just
I mean,
always on the
I think
move?
just I think it just depends. I mean, obviously it's a lot harder now with COVID. A lot more things are done virtual via text, video calls. So that's the type of route we've had to take. But beforehand, it was one of those things where we have like a whole system and routines where we said that we made a promise that all of our interviews before COVID, obviously, was going to be in person. So if we had somebody like Tone in Philly, we would drive up there, and then before we recorded him, we would sit down, get some food with him, see how he's living, get to know him more, and then do that. So our podcast has taken us to Philly, has taken us to New York, Jersey, Jibreel, if I'm missing any other states, like, it took us to Detroit, Michigan, so wherever the people are, we try to link with them and then just try to make something happen.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, majority of the travel has been for recording,
Mm-hmm.
or for doing some sort of collaborative work together. Um, Even stuff outside of just like the podcast. Young and Muslim is bigger than just a podcast. It's a brand. It's us two. It's those that we're involved with. So whenever we do travel, like we have a trip coming up, we're gonna be a little bit hush hush about that until y'all see. Um, Something like that. It isn't podcast related, but it is Young and Muslim related. So you know, it's more like business than pleasure. But we always try to have a little bit of fun when we go on these trips and
Mm-hmm.
make connections, of course, networking. But balancing the business and the fun of it is super important for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, it's about building a brand, right? You guys aren't just a podcast; it's a movement. So that's yeah, I respect that. I feel the same way because you start out, you're always gonna love being podcasters, but 20 years from now, inshallah, you're not just gonna want to only be doing podcasts. Like you want to have the
Mm-hmm.
young Muslim brand. So this
Yeah.
is this using this as a platform to get there, inshallah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
But
that's what makes it harder. You know what I mean? Because you want to turn into a brand, and it has to be a business. It would be so much easier for just a podcast and we just recorded like it was just a hobby, and that's just all we did, right? But we decided to take it to the next level, which means more sacrifices came with it, and just more hurt, more pain. You know what I mean? But more a rejoicing as well too. So can't forget that.
at what point did you guys try becoming the brand of Young and Muslim rather than just a podcast?
I think we started off on that foot.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ideas that we had about things we could do going forward. I, I mean, when we first started, I had the ideas. A lot of the ideas that we have being implemented now were those ideas, surfaced in 2018 when we started. But the world is just starting to see some of the moves that we have been plotting on for a couple years now, a few years. So I mean, when we first came out the gate, we were very intentional that we didn't want any guests. We did our first
Mm-hmm.
41 episodes where it was just us two. I think it was like 41 episodes. Um, and that was done purposefully because we needed our audience to understand us. We need them to get to know us. We need them to know how I talk versus how Mo talks. What are the certain ideals that I have versus Mo? That way, when we get a guest, you aren't focused on what we're saying. You're focused on the guest. You're focused on what they bring to the table, and we don't have to say as much, but you still know who we are, not just these two guys that are hosting. So from the get go, Young and Muslim, you know, it's been centered around us, but now we're starting to take it from us and make it bigger so that, when we're old and Muslim and we can no longer, go by that title, we can bring new blood in, but it still stays true to the values that we put in motion that come directly from us.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. That's and even starting out, I could imagine that it's like you guys wanted to start out as a brand. It's tough not to try rushing it, you know? It's
Mhm.
tough to actually sit here, plan it out, not be like, man, I got because you guys started you said 41 episodes or something like that with YouTube. That's an amazing way to start because then the people who listen, the people who view your stuff, they're not just gonna come because they're interested in the guest. They're gonna come because they
Mhm.
like you guys too, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, it's just me. So sometimes I feel like I need to get because I have to get a guest on every podcast. I feel like because that's kind of what my podcast is. So I
Mhm.
attract a bunch of different audiences, which is great, right? But it must be a luxury to have, a good friend of yours, like a brother of yours, to just chat it up. People love it. I love it. So
Mhm.
Thank
Be
you, thank
love.
you. It's well, any podcast can do what we do, and and it the way I would do it, like if it was just me or if he was by himself, I would just call him and be like, "Yo, hop on
Mhm.
the pod with me. Even if you can't do it all the time, just hop on and we just talk." I'm pretty sure you have friends. You know what I'm saying? You seem like a cool dude, so
Mhm.
it's like it's like, yo, just call up one of the homies, be like, yo, like I'm about to record. Do you want to hop on? I'm about to talk about X, Y, and Z. Or hey, I got this guest. Do you want to like? There's different ways to do it, and there's no rules to this podcasting game.
Right.
Like everyone can do it however they see fit. You know what I mean? So like one episode could be just me, the other one could be us two, and then the other one we could have 7 of our friends there with us. There's really no one can tell you what to do because like it's completely yours. So because this space is so new and because there's not really a lot of guidelines on the best way to do a podcast. Um and a podcast or any sort of creative outlet, it's all dependent on you. Like if you want to be good, what you consider good, right? Like is a million views what you're after, or are you after doing something that's fun that has like meaning behind it and maybe might not get as many views, right? Because
Mhm.
we don't talk about like we have people that are like super scholarly and that hits certain points. And we got people that talk super ratchet and that hits certain points, and that's not
Mhm.
us. So it's like stay true to what you find fun, what you find to be impactful for you and people like you and those that listen, versus saying, I want it to be a great podcast, and then you try to do all things to make it great because eventually that just fails. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
yeah, and you use the right word, impactful, for not just the podcasters themselves, but their audience, right? Not just some influencer on the socials, on the gram, talking about like this is the picture of my life, day of my life. Like this is a noble thing you could do. Make it impactful for your society, for your people, the community.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's what I love about podcasting. Because it's it's almost like it's pressure free sometimes. Like
Mhm.
you're talking. The worst comes to worst, you don't put it out, right? But in the best case scenario, you help people, right? If you could help one person, if you could educate one person about something, then you did your job. So it's not about the numbers, right? Like you said, like some people look for a million views, some people look for impact. So I see,
Mhm.
people like us, inshallah, we keep getting more having more impact on the game, on the podcast game. Yeah, keep winning, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
uh, yeah. But that I actually wanted to talk about that today, honestly, because you guys had a pretty good episode on influencers. Like,
Mhm.
what is an influencer?
Mm.
Honestly, we still might not know what an influencer is. Like, what
Mhm.
is an influencer,
That's
right?
funny. That's funny you bring
Mhm.
that up. Today I was working and I was thinking about that very question. What is an influencer? And I realized, media would be like, oh, an influencer is someone that has a micro versus a macro influence, someone that has a certain amount of followers. But it's like really everyone has an influence on someone somewhere in their lives, right?
Mhm.
Like you'll see these memes where they'll be like, kids watch what you do, not what you say. And it's true. It's true because kids just respond. Like as a man, they're going to look at what are you doing that backs up the words that you're saying, right? And so as these people in the social media realm, it's the same thing. It's like, what are you doing? And if you have 10 followers, and they watch that and they see it, then you have influence in some way, shape, or form over those very people. I don't think it's just people that have 10,000, 100,000,
Mhm.
a million. It like the numbers don't matter. It's like, yo, anyone can be an influence, good or bad.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's I think just to add to Jabril's point, I'm reading a book right now by John Maxwell. It's the 21 Laws of Leadership, and he says simply, leadership is influence. You know, so if you have somebody that's leading the way, whether it's for a certain industry or for Islam specifically, or just anything, whatever they want to talk about, like pop, popsicles, you know what I mean? But as long as they're leading the way and doing the research and kind of trying to take people from point A to point B, like that's an influencer, like Jabril said. But it's not about the numbers or the blue check, because that can get to your head really easily, especially when your stuff goes viral and then you forget what you did it for in the beginning, and that's to serve your community, serve a purpose, and not serve yourself. So
Yeah, I mean, bro, look, I don't need a check to be verified.
uh,
Just
I
point
like
blank, I
that.
don't need a check to be verified. I'm verified with the people that know me. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? Like that doesn't validate what I do, who I am, and all that good stuff. It's like been doing this. I've been talking. I've been working with kids. I've
Yeah.
been working with the youth. I've been starting businesses like well before the internet knew about it. So it's like, do I really need to be an influencer online to have an influence? No. I mean, look at our parents. Our parents are influencers. Look at
Yeah.
all of us. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I think we look at these terms that people coin right now. And it's like that's that's cool now, but in 10 years, no one's gonna be like, yeah, I was an influencer. It's like, no, like, what were you really doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, were you just posting up pics to look cool and look nice, or were you posting stuff that really make people think, that really make people engage in a different way with life, with one another? Like, yeah, like, don't need that stuff to be verified. What you need to do is work. Your work is what verifies you. Your work is what gives you a check. The streets verify you, not Instagram or TikTok. Like, I don't need to do this dance and like that doesn't tell me that I'm having influence. You know what I'm saying? Just because a billion people saw it. Like, is this what I want to be? Like, come on, bro. No.
Yeah.
Like, influence is more about what, not the how.
Mhm.
That's 100% right. I was just talking to like a month or two ago, Nadir Pierre. That's our
Mhm.
sister, right? She's
That's
she's
that's a home.
great. She's awesome. She's awesome. And she said something that kind of stuck with me. She said, I asked her like 2020, sum it up in like a sentence. She said everything's fake. Everything's fake. And what she meant by that is that whatever we see now, whether it's on on the news, social media,
Mhm.
we just can't take anything seriously anymore. And being an influencer, I'm not me. I'm saying like somebody being an influencer, they create this dull cycle because what they're looking for is like views, likes. That's like that's the worth of their viewer, while the viewer themselves are getting nothing out of you know being influenced, I guess, by those influencers. And you mentioned, Muhammad, you mentioned that book you were reading.
Mhm.
I read this book called 48 Laws of Power. I don't know if you guys heard or not. It's a
Mhm.
very interesting book, super good book. And then one of the laws was something along the lines of don't like if you're grinding in the background, don't show people that you're grinding. Just kind of show the final product. And I was
Mhm.
thinking just like a couple of days ago, I was thinking that whatever is posted on Instagram, these people who are influencers or who I guess in the moment when we look at it think that there's no worth to it, they might have a little bit of a business in the background, but that's what they're doing, right? They're posting the picture of the end product, not showing the
Mhm.
grind that it took to get there. So we might think they're fools, right? We might think they're fools, but at the end of the day, the fact that they're doing that, that law of power, I guess, works because they're showing the end product. They're not showing the grind. You know what I mean? So
True.
it's like
That's true.
I always thought that these guys are just stupid. They just got lucky, right? But
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe they're just playing the system and fooling these people.
But you know what? That rule works, but it depends on how it's used. So, for instance, like with us, a lot of people like to see. They always ask us like, what happens before an episode, or what
Yeah.
happens like before certain things take place. Like when you guys are on the road, what are you guys doing? That's behind the scenes work that typically we don't show. But there is profit to be made in showing that. There is a strategy in showing that. So I think in the broader terms, like, yeah, like work in silence. You know, I had a coach that used to say suffer in silence. Like, to do this type of work is to suffer at times, as Mo said. He was getting a little bit Norbit, but he's right. Like, it's hard at times, you know what I mean? But like, to show your process is unique. A lot of people don't show the process. So you end up with this thing called media bias, right? And long story short, what media bias is when we grew up seeing Bill Gates being like just this nerdy kid that started Microsoft, right, to being the richest man in the world. And we didn't see any of the in between. We didn't see the behind the scenes. We didn't see the turmoil, right? So we just think, oh, it was easy. I could do it. But it's like, imagine how much money you would pay if he had a camera guy with him every step of the way.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I'm releasing a movie. It's going to be $100 for a ticket. I would buy that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With ease. So I think there is beauty in showing the process, but I think you can only show the process once you have the clout, right? And clout right now is a bad word because it's like everyone's kind of chasing this clout. But once you have the notoriety, once you do have a larger base of influence, I think showing your process is helpful, because it gives, like, someone like you who's just starting a podcast, and we've been doing it for 3 years. Yeah, like, we talk about the process that we had to go through. We talk about that because that lets the people that hear this episode 5 years from now be like, okay, cool. So that's how I do it. This is how I'm gonna do it. Talking about it and showing it isn't necessarily bad. I think showing off before you've actually done it is actually bad. Like, acting like you've been there and you've done it before you've actually accomplished anything isn't where it's at.
Yeah, that's a no-go. Like, let's say a week ago, I'm like, man, I got the Young and Muslim Brothers at 6 p.m. Tune in, and it's like my dude got a flat tire and everything. Didn't work out. It's like I just set myself up for failure, you know.
Right.
But I think what that law of what that law of power was saying is that, I guess the book itself is used for watch out for these 48 laws of power. Not utilize them, right? Not use this on other people, because that's evil. But it's supposed to be like an evil book, I guess, in a way. Watch out for, this is what people do to gain power. And we see that, right? Like we know that it's impactful if we, once we get to that spot, show the process. But it's impactful, but it's not going to get the numbers like if we're on a yacht, take a picture and we've been grinding our whole life. So that's what's utilized by these people, that I can show the grind, but why do it, right? Like, why do it? Because they're like, I want you to be like me, or I want you to want to be me, So that's kind of what they're based their whole thing off of. So yeah, it's crazy to think about, man. It really is. But it definitely has a negative impact on society.
Yes.
Yeah, that there's no value added to the world. It's just a cycle. But how do you think that people could, how do you think the viewers could mitigate this whole thing? How do you think we could stay away from that?
In regards to what Jibreel was saying for the media bias, or just what in regards to?
No, just participating in the cycle of just feeding into that. Oh, this guy's an info. Let me follow this guy on my Instagram, stuff like that. Watch his moves and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because you have to remember that they're pumping like millions and billions of dollars for us to do that, to be in that cycle. So for us to combat this, like, you have to unwire your brain and think differently than the way you're thinking right now, and just seek knowledge and do it yourself, right? Figure it out. Like, okay, let me see what this YouTube is about. Let me see what the social media is about. Because on the other end, as content creators, we sadly almost have to think like the people that created the platforms, like, what's going to make people hit the like button, what's going to make people comment, what's going to get people to tick. Just like you said about that book, like, I've read it, and even when I read it to my wife, I read it out loud. She's like, yo, this guy's evil. Because it's just like, it talks about how you can manipulate people and get what you want. It was, very un-Islamic, but I like what you said. It's just telling you, like, hey, when you know these things, you can watch out for them. But how can you watch out for the things and know them if you never read that book, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, get that knowledge. So that's what I would say.
I actually don't agree with either one of y'all. I don't agree with either one. I don't think that information is evil. I think how you use it is evil, right? Like a gun isn't bad. The person that shot somebody in cold blood is bad. You know what I'm saying? So like the information is very useful because very good people have gained extraordinary power and done good things with it, right?
Mhm.
So there's this weird fallacy in the Muslim community that to have a lot of money and to have a lot of power is bad. But 600 years ago, when the Muslims were on top of the world, where we were conquering, almost every land around, like we had to know those laws of power. We had to know how to influence, how to manipulate, how to negotiate, how to get things. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that it's a necessary tool of knowing how a human behaves, knowing, if, in soccer, um, there's certain players, right? Like certain greats, and and a player is great because you watch the little things. So for instance, Iniesta, um, he's one of the best players that ever played the game. He's still playing. He's in Japan right now. But if you watch him play, it's the little shoulder feints, the little dip of the shoulder, the little feint with your leg, and then the dip the other way. Like small details like that, knowing how to manipulate, how does someone around you react so that you can get where you need to go
Mm.
is important. And the same thing in life is like, if I do this thing, like most saying about social media, if we post this, if we put titles here, if we put closed captioning here, if we do X, Y, and Z, how does it make people react? And to answer your question, I don't think there is any escaping it or negating it or getting it away. I think that we have to play the game and play it well, but use that power that's gained for good. Otherwise, we're in the position that Muslims have been in for the longest time, which is we're just these people that like to debate whether hijab is, do you need to wear it or not, right? Or like we does your pants need to be beyond your ankles or above your ankles, right? Like we start debating stupid stuff like that and have no influence on the world. The world just looks as these has-beens, as a culture that has no influence. But now you're seeing in this century, you're seeing people actually talk about, hey, we need to have Muslim businesses. We need to have Muslims that are going around the world helping people. We need to have Muslims that are having influence in sports and movies. Like we don't get anywhere without the knowledge of how to gain and utilize power. But Islam allows us to do it in a good way. Does it make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No. I see what you mean. I do see what you mean. I mean, the book itself, when Muhammad and I say evil, right? There are a couple laws that are like crazy. I mean, like they're not, the way the book goes is that each law has a bunch of historical stories to it, right? How did this guy use this to get into power? For example, there's a law about like stay close to your enemies, right? Stay close to your enemies. There's a guy in China. I'm gonna butcher the story, but this dude, Emperor of China, he was at war with some other clan, and what he did was he destroyed the other clan and everything, and he saved their general, and he said, you know what, you're gonna come to my place, my palace, and we're gonna discuss business. We're gonna eat together. And that guy's like, yeah, you're gonna poison me. Like you're gonna poison me. And he goes there and he says, okay, you know what, you're gonna be my general. Why? Like the guy's like, oh man, I'm about to get poisoned. Why are you being so nice to me? Why are you gonna do this? And he's like, listen, you're gonna be my general. And what that showed was that this dude, who's the general, has so much more to prove than within this emperor's friend. You see what I mean? Like this guy has to constantly be like, I barely have your trust, but I got to keep your trust and stuff like that. Like, which is important to understand, right? But in a context of just daily human lives, like we're not thinking about that. We're not at war. But what I'm trying to say is that what this book does is it has a lot of applicable laws that we as Muslims should actually use. And it does have some that we should be careful of. And gaining power is 100% a good thing. And like you said, uh, there's this whole notion that being rich and wealthy, even wearing nice clothes and everything's bad in our it's not in Islam, within the Muslim
Yeah.
community, right? And
Yeah.
it's the culture. And we're supposed to be fly. We're supposed to be powerful.
We're supposed to be
That's
best. We're supposed to be the best of the best, bro. The best of the
yeah.
best. Like to reference the story, right? And maybe my brain just operates different, but I've heard stories similar to that, right? Keeping your enemies close. I think we hear that in so many songs, and it's so misinterpreted. It's like, why would you keep your enemies close? But even if you look at the Prophet, peace and praise be upon him, if you look at the history of the Muslims and how they had to fight and win wars, eventually people that were against them became some of the people closest to them,
Hmm.
right? They
Yeah.
conquered these people, but you need their knowledge, you need their expertise. Like the Prophet wasn't the absolute smartest man in the world. He didn't know everything about everything. There was a particular battle, I can't remember which one, but there was one where the Prophet, he was like, let's set up camp right here. And one of his men was like, was this something that Allah sent down to you? Was it prophetic, or are you choosing this because you think this is a good place? He's like, no, this is just, I think it's a good place. He's like, well, if that's the case, this is a horrible place, right? He didn't know everything about everything. And so
Hmm.
when you fight and when you are in business even, and you, like, let's say, our podcast, we decide to buy you. You're technically our enemy in podcasting and business, right? But it's like, yo,
Yeah.
you might have knowledge in something where it's like, yo, instead of just like putting you out of business, like, no, we want to bring you in to do stuff with us, to help us, to build with us. So that's what I mean when I say, like, we need to be able to take things that we see in secular culture and be able to adapt and to do it the way that we as Muslims know how to do it, the way that we should do it, or we're going to keep falling behind.
I agree. No, I agree with you. I see what you mean. That's a great point. And just like us as podcasters and the Muslim bloggers and the Muslim journalists,
Hmm.
a middle class Muslim kid, guy or girl, their parents want them to be the next doctor, engineer, IT guy, programmer, which is great. Don't get me wrong, that's great because I'm trying to do the same thing. That's what I'm going to college for. But in order to, in order to change the script, we have to go above and beyond, right? We have to. How come, like, you guys are the number one Muslim podcast in the world, but why isn't there like so much competition? Why isn't it constantly changing? Well, why can't there be more competition? You know what I mean? Like, you guys are doing a great job. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah, thank you.
but
Hmm.
as a Muslim society, like, we should be racing to get our voices out there. We should be, trying our hardest to publish this blog and dabble in journalism while keeping our day jobs and our career path. But
Yeah.
that should be what we do. How else are we gonna push our agenda and change the script, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing about the Muslim community, like you mentioned, we're very like symbolic. Like for example, like Mo Salah plays for Liverpool. Instead of trying to figure out who Mo Salah is training and get 10 more Mo Salahs, we're like, we're good. We got somebody at the highest level. Like, what else do we need? And it's the same way with influencers. Like we have one hijabi that could be on the huge stage, or a Muslim brother that's a boxer like Muhammad Ali. Then we're just like, all right, everybody just go and support these handful of people instead of doing what Tone's doing, and find those small pockets of people that may be the next Muhammad Ali in 20 years, the next Muhammad Salah. You feel me? So that's the problem. We're like, yo, we got one doctor in the family. Everybody try to be like him, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that,
not enough people willing to take the risk. You mentioned Muhammad Ali, like that's a risk,
yeah,
bro. Like this man
yeah, it's
started
a
like
risk.
7 years old to
Facts.
be what he was. And so like a lot of Muslims, and we'll say immigrant Muslims, that the parents come over here and they're like, yo, Muhammad, you need to go be a doctor. Nasir,
Hmm.
you need to go be a dentist or a physician, whatever it is. But maybe this kid is good enough to be in the NBA. But because they don't see that from where they come from, and because they only think about money
Yeah.
as being financially sound, it's like you're sacrificing someone that can have greatness and be a good influence for our culture versus him just having a stable job so that he's fine. Like, yo, like I could still go to school and be a doctor. I'm 28. I could still go back to college, go be a doctor. Like those are things you can always do. I tell kids that all the time. I tell dudes younger than me, they're like, yo, I'm going to school. It's like, yo, that's great. Like, I'm not going to tell somebody not to go to school,
Hmm.
but it's like, what impact are you having aside from your family with whatever profession you're doing, right? Like if you're passionate about something that you feel like can have a very visceral effect in a great way, go for it, try it, like
Hmm.
try it out for a little bit, see what happens. You never know how you're going to land, where you're going to land at when you try something like this, for example, or being a movie star or being a race car driver. Like, you never know where those things will take you.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of families, a lot of cultures don't see it, they don't know it, so they forbid the things that they don't understand, especially when it comes to, Muslim families and immigrants that come particularly into, like the Western countries. So you got Canada and UK, the US, other European countries. It's like we've cut out creativity for security, but look at where it's taken the world. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. But can you so let's say you're a low class family and a high upper class family. These
Hmm.
the upper class family has enough money to where if the kid wants to do something creative and they fail, they have that cushion, right? And with a low class family, if the kid fails, well, you have nothing to lose at that point. But if you're middle class, right, like a lot of us Muslims are, um, you see the risk though. Like I agree with you 100%, but I mean we got to understand the risk of, yeah, if you do that, that's great. But if you fail, we might not have enough to just support you for the rest of your life, right? If you're trying to fulfill this dream or this promise to yourself that this is what I want to do with my life. So I
Hmm.
see what you mean, and I wish it was easier, but that is the trade off, I guess, right? The security is still important, especially to like middle class family, you know.
Mm. I think that's a good example that you're bringing, especially for a middle class family. Like I would consider my family, and I'm the eldest. My parents wanted me to become a doctor, but I didn't. Just decided to go into sales just because of a whole bunch of other things. And I had a salary paying job, and I was getting paid decent, and my family was okay with that because I was taking care of. Then with COVID, and I was there for 5 years, I ended up just losing my job, And then I got married, and then next, my family's kind of like it's scrambling now. You feel me? Trying to figure things out. But they knew that I wanted to make that risk. But just like you said, like think about families that only have one kid, right? Alhamdulillah, I have like three or four brothers, so they can come up the ranks and do the same thing. But imagine just having a daughter or a son with a disability. So now I like you bring up a good point. Bring up a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
practicality. Like, I think there's practicality with all of it, right? Like,
Mm,
I've been on my entrepreneurial, do my own thing tip for a
mhm,
minute, and so it takes a lot. It's not as easy. Like, it was very nice when I had a 9 to 5. Like, it was real nice, right? But because of the way I grew up, I'm just different. My dad grew me up. He raised me and groomed me to like want to do my own thing. So being a 9 to 5, I was like, God, like I gotta get out of here, right? Um, but what was nice was, okay, nice. I gotta check.
mhm.
But when you have a value change, when your value system is wired differently, where like in my mind, I was like, I don't need a job. All I need to do is be able to pay rent. When I break down how much rent was on a daily basis, I was like, I only need to make $100 a day. How do I make $100? How much is that per hour? How many hours? Like my mind works in that way where it was like, if the podcast pays for my rent, I'm good.
Mhm,
Because what else do you need, right?
mhm.
And with certain families, it's like the same thing. Like, if you could do your podcast right now, or if you could sing, or if you could dance and pay for, the basic necessity, like you were able to like have gas in your car, or you're
Yeah.
able to get your public transit where you need to go. If you're able to take care of the basic things doing what you could do, you would be happy. But I don't think
Mhm.
that's what a lot of middle class families, specifically, we're talking about these Muslim families. I don't think a lot of them they don't care about that. Like, if you could do this, what you're doing now, and pay for your basic means of living, I don't think it's as simple as your parents go, okay, that's cool, you should do that.
Yeah. Nah.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? So it's not about the
Yeah.
money. It's never about the money. It's
It's
never
about.
about the money.
The
I
prestige
think
or
it's.
the look, status.
Exactly.
But
It's about outside. It's about those
Yeah.
people back there whose son just became
Mhm,
a doctor and he makes 100,000 a year, but
mhm.
you make $40,000 a year, but you're good. You're happy. You can pay your rent. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the difference? What's the difference?
let me tell you
So,
what I
and
think
I'm
it
not
is.
shooting anybody down that's being a doctor.
Yeah.
Just by the way,
We're
right?
going in on that. Like, I think that what needs to change is our view, not ours, but the this generation and the past generation of Muslims, we need to understand what success is. We need to change our image of success. Success at this point to me is not making uh, 80 to 120K and living the rest of your life doing that and not having an impact on society. That's not a successful person, right? Because it's in the moment, you're in the moment financially, you do, there are successes there. You're taking care of your family. That's a huge success. But if we're talking about the grand scheme of things, for the past 10 minutes we've been talking about individual instances, and that's,
Mm.
it's tough to think about individual instances because then we put ourselves in those shoes and it's like, what would we do? Yeah, like it's good to be, we're in this position where we have a podcast or whatever, but we can understand coming from this guy's perspective that play it safe. But it's all about discipline, time management. Like we should be able to work a job and do something on the side. Even like if we can't dedicate our whole life to it, we should still have our foot in the door. You
Yeah.
know, that's success. That's success. I feel like if you can make an impact like that, feed your family and have an impact on the world little by little, that adds up to a successful ummah, right?
Yeah, 100%,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah. What success is in general. Have you guys heard of a guy named Faraz Sahabi?
No.
He's a coach,
No.
MMA coach, jiu-jitsu coach, and pretty much what his philosophy of success is. He said that the greatest. He's actually a coach, but he had a degree in philosophy. He's like a very interesting guy, and he said what success is today is obviously not what success was back in the day of the Spartans, right?
Mhm.
What we consider success is stable income, right?
Yeah.
At least stable income.
Mhm.
Back then, success was about discipline. And when I say discipline, I mean all of the greatest thinkers. He said 99% of the greatest thinkers said that if you want to be successful, you have to wrestle. You have to be, why wrestle? Because wrestling is the toughest physical activity you can do to yourself. It's nothing gets tougher physically on your body than wrestling. If
Mhm.
once you've gone through that, then nothing's tough in your life afterwards, right? You have to be healthy. That's You have to do all these things that are going to end up making you happy and making you a durable human being, right? You have to not let anything phase you. um, Now the culture, the way humans work now is just so much more lazy, right? Me included. Like we look at it differently. We can't achieve as much as the Spartans did back in, back in their, they could only live up to 20, man. They were going to war and everything, but they accomplished way more than what we might be able to in 80 years, inshallah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's just thinking, what is that? Right? Like what
I,
does it mean?
I don't necessarily think that this generation can accomplish as much. If you look at the Forbes 30 under 30, I think there was
Mhm.
7 or 8 of the people on that list were Muslim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you're talking
I'm
about,
not saying we can't. I'm not saying we can't. I'm
yeah,
just saying that those 7 or 8 people, we know that, like, like Amir was on there, like great people and
Mhm.
everything. But as we're definitely not where we're supposed to be right now, where we should be, right? As a Muslim ummah. We're not we should I feel like we should be farther along at this point.
yeah. Well, I mean, but all things happen for a reason, right? Like
100%,
there
yeah.
has to be a recalibration. Like every great dynasty or tribe or people have to go through an up and down. It's just like with our work. Like there's times where you on top of it,
Yeah.
right? There's times when you in school where you get all A's, and there's times where you got D's, and you like, yo, like what's going on, right? So it's like no, there's a high only stays high for so long before you have to come back down, and
Mhm.
and for us and for our culture, for our community, it's like we need to have a, for so long the old guard was holding on to the ropes of our communities. Like
Mm.
the same guy was giving the adhan at the masjid for 40 years, and the same guy was, if you go to your masjids and if you've been in your hometown, it's the same people doing the same jobs. It's never passed off, right? But now we're starting to see that the broader community is bigger than just the masjid. We're starting to see the broader
Mhm.
community and what matters to people is bigger than just at home community. It's like we're starting to get out and explore now because just like in my culture, like my culture, my people were explorers, we were navigators, we were adventurers, but no one would tell you about that. No one will explain it to you.
Mhm.
So until we start taking those risks and doing it, it's never going to change. It's not going to change for us. So for us, it's like we have to start taking those risks. We have to start upping the people that may not make as much money, but they're doing things that are trailblazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you spoke about Amir, we were just over there in Muslim. We were just over there with
Yeah.
them. They're doing some dope work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you tell that to somebody's uncle, they're gonna be like, is he making money though? Why he
Yeah.
not rich? Why he not a fancy car?
Yeah.
He's not success. Success is Donald Trump. No, I'm not saying.
Oh
But
no, I don't want
but
no uncle saying that.
nah, I stole that from Rami. I'm not even gonna lie. But but now like our measures of success are all rooted in a financial backing. But the reality is there's so many more aspects of life than just the finances. The finances are important because of the world we live in.
Yeah.
And majority of countries and majority of world systems, capital systems are rooted in capitalism. So yes, money matters. But going back to what we started off with, having influence and having impact doesn't correlate with money. It correlates
Yeah.
with what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Correlates with what you're putting out there. Not exactly like the medium.
Yeah.
um I think that a big part of that, I think you know how you said that every dynasty has its time, right? I agree with
Mm-hmm.
that. We look at, dude, we look at the Ottoman Empire, for God's sake, like that. Yeah, we had our time at one point, but if you ask me, in my opinion, I think our time is coming soon, within a
Mm.
generation. Why? Because a lot of people my age, a lot of young Muslims my age, um, I mean, our parents still, they came from a different country. My mom came from Pakistan. My dad came from Kashmir. These
Mm-hmm.
they come here and they're like, okay, we came here. You better not be you better not be under our support for the rest of your life. Like, we made this sacrifice. That's the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We made the sacrifice so you could do well. But inshallah, when we have kids, it's gonna be a little bit different, right? Like, yo, we've
Yeah.
been here, right? The
Mhm.
sacrifice was already made. Like, I don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about the sacrifice anymore. So
Mm.
now you can explore a little bit. Right? It's a matter of time, in my opinion.
Me and him have this conversation a lot though, and
Mhm.
I find that rhetoric extremely ironic, right? If if our parents, because my parents are similar, right? Like my parents aren't immigrants. I'm African American. We're rooted here. But if my parents worked hard to give me the opportunities they didn't have, one of the opportunities they didn't have was to have the freedom to do the things that aren't rooted in I just needed money, right? Like middle, you went through the classes. Middle class is that class where it's like you have security, you have that backing. So you should be able to have the freedom to build up and go forward. But with middle class, a lot of times you see middle class just do this.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It stays stagnant because they're saying, oh, well, you shouldn't take that risk. But it's like, no, if you don't risk it, I'm going to be here too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, yeah, if I get it though, I understand. I'm not trying to slight the immigrant parents that come here and they build a life for their kids and for their family, because that's super important and that's a foundation that's set. But I was just talking to some new friends I made, and they're all Palestinian. They're like, yo, our family, they're the family that's here, that's all we have. Because when we left Palestine, they were all wiped out. Like our entire village was massacred. So like
Mhm.
that inspired us to come here and do something great. And they're, doctors, they're social media influencers, they're blog writers. Like these are
Mhm.
some very high value people in the work that they're doing. And it's like, well, their parents came here to give them a better life, and look at the risk that they took to do what the work they're doing. So it's like
Fact.
it can go either way. Either you can say, all right, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna take that route, which is nothing wrong with that, or you can take the route where you're like, yo, I'm about to just take that risk because the alternative is what?
Mhm.
Yeah. MashaAllah, Palestinian brothers and sisters are always on their grind, man. I love
Yeah.
Palestinian
Yeah.
people. But my uncle, he was anytime he says something really funny that relates to this conversation, which is when I ask him, like, what do you think about this? Like, what if I get this, put this on my resume and whatever? And he says, listen, you're asking me, a middle class guy, for advice. I'm gonna give you middle class advice, right? Right? Like I'm gonna give you, if you want to make it, don't ask me for advice. I'm a middle class guy. Ask somebody else, right? Ask somebody that's actually made it. Somebody in the upper class or something. Somebody who's you're trying to get to where they're at, right? So it's like middle middle class advice. It's just it creates, the cycle keeps going from it, right?
And I would think I would also add, because my parents came from Egypt, so an immigrant story, same thing. They came here to establish themselves, right? I feel like my job right now, I'm 28 years old. My job is to build my network and explore this country, because my parents haven't even left Virginia. I mean, they've never been to the West Coast. They've been to Florida. They've been to the beach, like typical places, right? But they haven't been to the Midwest. They haven't been to Texas. They haven't been to Maine, right? So I feel like my job is to explore the country, build a brand, and build my network. That way, when I have kids, Jibreel asked me, like, are you going to take your kids to public school or private school? I was like, well, if I already have all those contacts, I can use those contacts for my leverage. For example, my kids wants an Islamic, teacher. I can use an imam that we brought on the podcast. Somebody wants to become a basketball player. I can go ask the Jamad, right, who's crushing it out in Boston. Like, hey, can you train my daughter? You see what I'm saying? So our job is to network, but then our kids' job, we have to help them, is we have to gather all the Muslims together, because we're doing great things. We're just all spread out, and we're not supporting each other, and we're not uplifting each other, and we're not under each other. But it's like Tone says, my whole team is Muslim. So we get to that point, they literally don't have to be Muslim, but as long as they have the same values used and have the same mission and going towards the same angle, then that's a plus. Because when our parents came here, they were just like, look, we're here, right? We're here. We got our feet on the ground. We got some money. That was our mission. Our job is done. They still think that chasing the money is something that will forever be the case, but that always stops in its tracks. So.
Yeah, money has an end to it. That's a great point, bro. Money always has an end. You got to judge with something more than that.
Yeah.
Point.
Definitely. Yeah. Great conversation. Alhamdulillah. We all learn from this conversation.
Alhamdulillah.
Anytime we talk about money, there's always something to be learned, right? Success, you can't stop talking about it. There's no end to success. So inshallah, hey, we gotta do this again sometime. This is a good conversation.
Man, no, we appreciate you having us on, man. This was a lot of fun. And sorry about being late.
Gotta do part two, man. So much more talking. We gotta do part two.
Anytime. We got this connection now. We're gonna use it. So all right, guys. You guys gonna stick with me just for like a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
That's it for the podcast, guys. Hope you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow them. Young and Muslim, and hey, hit them up. Tell them, give them a plug. Like, tell them what.
All right, cool. So if you Mo, I think we're going to wrap up his podcast for him.
Let's do it.
So if you guys want to talk to us, if you guys want to see what we're up to, Mo, how can they find us, bro?
Absolutely. If y'all want to shoot us a message, we're very responsive. Send us a DM, Twitter, Instagram, Young and Muslim, YOUNGN Muslim. And Jibreel, if they want to actually listen to the podcast and they want to watch us, how can they do that, fam?
Yeah, so if you guys want to listen and or watch, you can watch us on YouTube, the Young and Muslim podcast, Young, the letter N, Muslim podcast. And if you guys want to listen in, you guys can find us on all of the streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Castbox, Google Play, SoundCloud. We everywhere that you can think of. So hop in, listen. We got hundreds of episodes and enjoy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You guys didn't know they're the number 2 podcast in the world behind me. I mean. All right. Assalamu alaikum, guys.
Alaikum assalam.